Folks, welcome back with us this hour. You're in for a special treat. We have on the phone with us, and that's by the way, we cannot take phone calls this hour because he's on the phone line. We're going to talk to Russ Dizdar. Now, I've known Russ Dizdar for, golly, 15 years, maybe longer, I don't know. I've shadowed the Darkness Ministries, and he is a man who travels all over the country using his God-given gift of discerning of spirits and casting out demons and even helping police officers solve crimes. He's seen things that most of us just dream of or probably wouldn't know what to think of if we did see it. But that's what his ministry is. We all have different callings, all in the same body, just different places to work. And Russ Dizdar, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you, Butch. Appreciate being here today and look forward to getting into some of the stuff that's happening all over the place.
Well, it's so good to have you, Russ. I don't know how far back we go, but it's been at least 15 years, hasn't it?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, on the phone first and then down to the big meeting down in Kent, then a few meetings afterwards. And, yeah, we've been doing some stuff together and good things. And I know we both understand how desperate the times are right now.
Oh, my. You know, you look back, and by the grace of God, we've had a lot of victories through Christ, but the battle gets hotter every day, and the harvest fields increase every day, do they not?
They really do. I mean, as dark as it gets, the good news, I mean, we still have indestructible hope. We still have a message of Jesus, no matter
Amen.
where we're at, and it's going to be brighter than ever because the dark, I mean, moral and spiritual darkness is so thick right now. And a lot of believers have been suppressed and quieted, but we don't have to be. I think now is the time to be the boldest ever. I don't want to go out silent. I want to go out.
Amen.
I want to go out like the OK Corral.
Yeah, exactly. Go down with all guns a-blazing, right?
Absolutely.
Well, you know, I've seen, and I know you have, ministries that have been around for years are starting to show the true callers, and unfortunately, most of them are not good. They've milked people for millions and billions of dollars and name it and claim it theology and a whole lot more. And now we're seeing the truth coming out as the preacher that just had I went to Madonna's LGBT party a while back, and right now my name's slipping my mind. Had the biggest church in the nation. What's his name again?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of it. Holstein?
Holstein. Yeah. So, I mean, we're seeing the callers come out, and, you know, corrupt seed eventually, Russ, will come out as corrupt fruit, will it not?
Well, I believe that, and I think the dividing line, I think when the pressure's, clearly there, for us as believers, in Jesus and really knowing truth and having the Spirit of God inside and being able to stand, it will. I mean, if we have folks out there that are fake, weak, carnal, whatever you want to call, if they're playing that game even God Himself will bring an exposure to that.
Absolutely.
And that needs to be because we're not called to in any way have any of that kind of deception out there. We're not here to be a form of godliness but denying the power. There's a lot of form of godliness, but a denial of the very power and life of Jesus inside. And so we see that, and even the demons know the difference.
Oh, yes.
We engage a lot of demon-possessed people over the years, and there's no question that the demons know whether you're a real believer, whether you have, they know this. And so there's a lot of folks that might be playing the game and making money, and they don't have the slightest idea, that the dark side knows how to read their lunch and use them and bring them down even.
Well, we know that, and we know, too, that, again, corrupt seed brings forth corrupt fruit, and eventually it may look like a good plant. I mean, it can come up and look like it's going to be a big, beautiful tree with lots of good fruit. When it brings forth fruit, we realize it's not what it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
And that's what we're seeing, and it breaks my heart. So many people have been deceived by Satan's ministers, but that's what they're ministers of light behind the pulpits, and people are attracted to them. I mean, unfortunately, that's the way it is, and the more it pleases the flesh, the more they're attracted to them.
Yep.
So anyway, today we're going to discuss our things, but I do want to discuss some things that you and I talked about on the phone a week or two ago or longer, maybe about a month ago. as I said, a lot of things that we see on the surface that appear to be something they're not. And one of the most idyllic things I remember seeing of my life is traveling through country with the Amish or the Mennonites, maybe it would be, and looking at their farms and their simple way of living and thinking about, boy, gee, it must be nice to be not on the grid and living off the land and, having families the way that they used to be. But apparently, Russ, I was deceived by the outward appearance. I'd like for you, if you would, and your experience, before we get into that, though, tell folks a little bit about yourself in case you have a new listener, about what you do, what your job is in Christ. But then get into to telling the truth about sometimes we are deceived by appearance.
Sure, I got saved in 1975, and from that point on, when I got saved, it was a radical, I just totally got saved and totally yielded to Jesus and wanted to be out there evangelizing and sharing, went after my family, went after everybody, went off to Bible schools, and and for me it was new because I wasn't raised in church, so I get in church and baptized and begin to grow and go to Bible school, and all I cared about was just winning souls into the Lord. But we also know that there's a dark side, and so in the middle of ministry, we're starting to deal with people that have demonic presence, and we read the Bible. Jesus has given us power, authority over all that dark, all the snakes and scorpions, the dark side. So we were in the late 78, 79, doing deliverances, and then we began to engage people that had satanic ritual abuse, and along with pastoring local churches and doing all the work, we really got headlong into that whole world of massive abuse, satanic ritual abuse, a whole underworld. So we just felt, and I can say this after 35 years later, there's no question God led us into that, to kind of like Ezekiel chapter 8, where God just led Ezekiel right down into the underground and showed him what they were doing, and back in underneath the temple, down to the cavern, the hidden places. So we've been all over the United States, we've been to Germany and Poland and France and England and Scotland and just Switzerland and Canada, just engage this underground phenomena that corresponds to biblical prophecy about the end of days, New World Order, all the rest of that. So it's everything the Scripture speaks about, a coming new order, Antichrist, all this development, all the biblical prophecy tells us about, the demonic, the advance of demonic presence, and more demonic presence than ever in history in the last days. So we began not only to engage victims and engage covens and satanic rituals and find out that they don't like being engaged, they want to come after you. So we just, we were involved in evangelistically going after that underground, prayerfully going after that underground. Many hundreds of individuals that we met, and so that's been a vast part of what we've done. I want to be known just only as a soul winner more than anything, but we have had to deal with satanic ritual abuse, covens, pedophile rings, every kind of really dark underground sadistic kind of groups. That brought me into law enforcement, recruited me to be a police chaplain so I could teach on occult crimes in the academy a little bit. We did that back in the 90s, and we also had our own team. We have a team called Court Team 1 out of, it's just called the Shatter Intervention Investigative Unit. And we go after hard case stuff like pedophile rings and groups, satanic rituals. We track stuff down. We've extracted people and moved them from one state to another state, from one city to another city. We've put people in safe houses for a while, and we've at times had to have law enforcement come in to deal with really, really bad guys, threats, and bad guys coming to your house and doing satanic rituals and blood rituals against you and things like that. So we've done this for many, many years. We're right in the thick of all of it, and in the context of that, researching biblical prophecy and seeing all the truth there, and doing we've spoken over 100 since we were with you down there. I've spoken at over 120 conferences, I believe.
Wow.
Or here in Europe and other places, and it's all the same. Here's what I know I see. I see the world at whenever everybody reads in Scripture in Matthew 24, when Jesus talks about the end of the age and what it will be like, let no one deceive you, and earthquakes and all the rest of that, nation against nation, everything the biblical prophetic Scripture shows us is clear that there's boots on the ground. It's actually happening. All of this is going to come down. I don't know how much time we have left, but I know that it's going to continue to get spiritually darker, more demonization, more engagement, more dark stuff. But along with that, biblical prophecy shows, I think, the drug pharmakia, the whole development of the drug world will get unbelievably worse than it is now, and the demonization and the sexual decadence, pedophile rings, and I mean, in satanic ritual abuse, Butch, they're all highly sexually abused in sex rituals. Well, then, connected to that, and the development of pedophile rings the last couple of decades is off the charts. Sandusky case, we're in the middle, part of that anyway. And then there are other groups, institutional foster care. So we've been in, for example, we've been in Pennsylvania for the last 25 years, from one side to the other, city after city, dealing with victims. And then, as you mentioned, the Amish, in the midst of all of our ministry dealing with the satanic ritual side, we got called in to Williamsport, Pennsylvania, to meet with a family whose daughter was taken, and there's no way I can say it on air other than saying horrifically, horribly sexually used, abused, filmed a number of times. We're talking from 10 years old to 13. And other girls, and then we launched an investigation into the area. The area is massively Amish, and then the connection to the Mennonite area, Belleville, Pennsylvania, the Big Valley area. So here's what we found, as you were mentioning. I grew up among Amish people, out in Hartville, Ohio, where I lived, 30 years ago. So you look at the outward and you think, well, yeah, look at those buggies, look at you buy vegetables, you buy pies, you give a little talk, you talk and say hello to each other. And it is kind of, neat to look at. Even when I've been in Belleville, I looked over these massive, beautiful farms. But there's just farms after farms. You can go to what's called Jack's Mountain, look over the whole valley, and you see buggies everywhere, black buggy, white buggy, yellow buggy. There's different kinds of Amish, and food everywhere. You can buy you pull up to a stand and buy every kind of vegetable, and just it all seems so nice.
Well, it's just absolutely beautiful. It's picturesque. It's hard to describe. It looks like perfection on earth as far as what man can do.
Exactly, and it really does. And that's outwardly. That's why I mentioned that verse where we read in Scripture. They have a form of godliness. Yes. That little word "form," the biblical word means a semblance, an appearance of godliness. And I would agree that Amish looks like they have an appearance of godliness. But here's what I can tell you in a short. After 3 years of digging in, I took team members in over and over again, quietly investigating, taking every lead, going everywhere. After 3 to 3.5 years, here's what we found. That among Amish girls, at least 80% of them are sexually abused and incest, raped, used over and over again in the area that we're at. A larger, broader pedophile ring development using Amish girls and others, filming them and selling the films.
Well, let me ask you a question, Russ. Now, are these... Yep. Are the Amish men also involved in the film industry with this and selling the films, or that's just outsiders?
I would say that because the outsiders that we investigated, that we've turned into troopers now and turned into law enforcement, many of the hardcore guys that are organized, I would have to say that they are ex-Amish. They were either born and raised Amish, but then left. Like if you leave the Amish, you might go to the Mennonite, which is a little bit less, you would think less restrictive, but yet we found in that system, you find a lot of the abuse. Once we got into one case, then turned to 2, 3, and 4. Now we're talking hundreds. We've been to law enforcement. We've sent notes to the Attorney General. We've talked to the feds. We've gone and the state trooper in Huntington, they initiated an official organized crime ring going after as a pedophile ring.
Are the feds getting involved? Are you getting any response? Are they okay?
Yeah, they have. And now, like right this weekend, now more than ever, because in the cases that we have directly, girls have been drugged, taken out of their homes. We're talking 12 and 13-year-olds taken to a farm area. We've been to the locations where all this occurred. Like I say, we've taken people into it. We wanted definitive information first. We've sent people to go visit the Amish churches and Mennonite churches secret. I mean, we sent them in to kind of spy it out a little bit.
By the way, the girls that were taken, were they outsiders or were they Amish girls?
They were Amish. They were Amish girls. They were Mennonite girls primarily. Yeah, they were all. So far, all of them. Now we also found a location where they're bringing in girls from around the country, and this is right now extremely active, and this will become a federal thing. There's national news media that has come in and has now interviewed us. We've given the information. They're doing a major investigation.
Wow.
So here's what's going to happen.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but when they attended the church services, what did they see in the church services?
The one I can tell you about the ones I went to specifically. The Amish Mennonite. It's called Amish Mennonite church.
Were you welcome? Did they welcome you in?
I would say yes. And now the men sat on one side, the girls sat on the other side. So it was you're in the same sanctuary building, but all the ladies and girls on one side, men on one side. They don't have anybody lead music. Someone just starts off with a hymn. They sing hymns. They usually have 2 or 3 bishops preach or speak somewhat. Now, the one we went to, we had numerous allegations against the bishop being involved in the sexual abuse, and the younger bishop, preacher guy, being involved. So we went there to observe everything, and we pretty much, I would say, we were welcome. It's clear you're an outsider. You're not dressed like them. You don't look like them. But they said, everybody said hello to us and welcomed us at that place. Now, a direct Amish church, we probably couldn't even get in. They're on farms. They meet from place to place. That's a little different. We have not been invited into one of those yet. That's even more exclusive, or that whole world looks at us as outsiders. We're the English, and that's when we got into learning their structure and what they're all about.
Maybe the reason why they don't want you, and you might see things that they don't want you to see.
Well, I now believe that's true. Like I dealt with cults back in the 70s and 80s called the Unification Church, the Moonies, the Way International, the Children of God with Mosesburg, and all that stuff. So we dealt with cults. That's different than Satanism, but a cult has a structure where there are leaders that, here's the structure of a cult. They will have extremely dominant male leadership that are very authoritarian. You're not allowed to question them. You're not allowed to go against them. You can't speak. They alone set the rules. It seems like they're more authoritative than the Bible and everything else. Secondly, it's called thought reform. So they have control over all behavior, control over what you think, control over what basically you're even going to eat, where you're going to go, where you're going to live, how much education you're allowed to get, who you're allowed to talk to. So you have, if you look at, even in a secular look at what a cult is, the 10 indicators of a cult, the Amish fit them, they fit all 10.
Wow. Well, now
they'd be at the top of the list.
You were there with the bishop and the under bishop that you said have questionable backgrounds. What did you find out about them?
Well, we asked for a meeting privately. We didn't do this publicly yet. And they met in the back, and we shared what we heard and found out. Then I pointed to the bishop, and I said, "You're the man. You're the one that's doing this." and sitting across from me was his son. We have a composite picture of a little 9-year-old naked girl being held up and choked out by the bishop, and we looked at him and said, "This is your daughter." Well, what he didn't know is that the troopers are going to come after him because he's implicated in raping a 7-year-old girl with 4 other guys.
Well, when you confronted them with this, I mean, that I have to mar your guts. That's pretty courageous, right there in the middle of their own pack. But so what did they say? Did they deny it? What come out of that?
Well, I tell you how it was. It was, and I will say this: among Amish and Mennonite, they're really ingrained to be nonviolent per se. So when we went in there, we had 2 of us sat together. A third guy came in later and sat in a separate area. So we especially the satanic things we deal with, we have teams that have backup and backup. But here we weren't really worried so much of any kind of physical violence, but we confronted. We shared what we said. We said this needs to be dealt with, and the older bishop I felt was very arrogant, and he began to claim, well, there's a girl in the area claiming that she has fantasies. Here's what he said: they have fantasies in their head about all this abuse stuff. And so basically, the other 3 bishops, or I think 2 bishops and 1 preacher guy, all thanked us for coming in and doing it this way, that they would do their own investigation and go from there. So our teams left that Sunday. We did not come back the next Monday. Here's what occurs. I get an email first, and then with a phone number, to another guy who was a part of the Amish bishops and Amish, all the Amish structure from the area. So I call him. He tells me, "We know who you are. You're being warned. They're going to arrest you. They're looking for you. They've got the police to help them." That same church we just went to, the police showed up with people from the fire station, armed guards, to protect the church from us. They showed up to arrest us. Well, we knew we didn't do anything illegal, so we've been back 2 or 3 times. Then a Mennonite preacher invited us to come to his church and talk to them. They set it up to us be arrested by these local police who are implicated in covering up the sex abuse cases.
Ah.
Well, we took 9 guys in there. They didn't realize. I had an Australian Special Forces guy and retired deputies and others on our team. So I went over and sat right next to the police officers, and the Amish, the Mennonite bishop, the Mennonite, he's called a pastor. The Mennonite pastor is like, he's almost like to the point of yelling at us. But he had 4 of his guys up there. And so it was a major, straightforward exchange. And I said, if you guys want litigation, I said, first of all, there's nothing to arrest us on. We know that. These officers know that. There's no way you're going to be able to arrest us. Nobody's done anything illegal. Second, if that occurs, we got litigation. We're going to come in right away. And third, we've already written to your attorney general, to the feds, and 15 district attorneys. If we need to appeal and go to them when it comes to these kind of cases, we're not waiting for you guys to do anything. You guys have failed. You've got hundreds of victims, girls that are subjugated. So it got into a big exchange, and when it was all done, we were all leaving. One of the officers came outside, shook my hand, and said, "Hey, I've been reading." This is bizarre, but I've been reading your book, The Black Awakening, on satanic ritual abuse. And he says, "I really appreciate how you combine this with scripture and prophecy." And we had a good discussion. So since that time, we have had other threats, being told to stay out, that we're English, we're not allowed to be there. I boldly spoke back and said, "Hey, I live in the United States. I don't live in Iran. I don't live in Russia. I'm allowed to come into Pennsylvania. I'm allowed to come into this little city. You don't own this whole region. We'll come here." And we've been going back again and again and again, meeting with more victims, getting more evidence, and now it's at the point where, and I believe this part is part of the, we're going to this mountainside and praying over the whole valley. We're going to pray for healing for the girls. But here's the structure of the Amish. Here's how it works. For decades and decades, they've done this. When a man gets caught sexually abusing a 7 or 12-year-old girl, whatever, first of all, they deny all legalities, laws, police. They forbid their people to go to the police. They forbid their people to go to outside counselors. They're not allowed. They tell they claim they've worked out a deal for the last 70 years that the police will do their thing but stay out of their business, and the Amish men will take care of their own stuff. So here's what they do, Butch. They bring forth the abuser, the rapist. Again, you're talking about not just an abuser. Let's just say what they really are. They've raped multiple times. They may have raped usually within their own family structure. Girls have been raped 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12, 15 times, used, and group raped, by the way, with 3 or 4 Amish guys at one time.
Oh, gosh.
So they take them before the Amish church quietly. The person has to acknowledge, and here's what they have to say: I have made a moral deficiency. I have. They don't come out to say I've sinned, that I've raped, or I did. They don't come out to define, but they say I have had a moral failure. Well, do you now renounce that moral? Yes, I renounce that moral failure, and I won't do it again. Okay, we all forgive you, and from this point on, no one is permitted to speak about it. I've been told that so many times, Butch, and I ask them, straight out ask them, what do you do for the girls that have been raped? What do you do for the women? Zero, Butch. The women are not allowed to talk to anybody. They are commanded to say, I forgive and I will forget about it.
Oh my. And since you've been coming out in these meetings and exposing more of this, are you having Amish ladies and young ladies come to see you or call you and talk to you?
Yeah. We actually have confidential informants that live there from the area, that are now people who are saved, born again, that they've come out of that whole world, but they live there, and they're like literally on our teams now, working with us for the last few years. They know everything in the area, so they take us to another victim. We are in to go meet another victim just a week ago. I went into a deli to meet her. She's been threatened of to be physically harmed if she tells anybody what was done to her. We went in to tell her that we will help her, whatever she needs, if she needs to be pulled out of there. We have gone to visit a couple other victims. We have a week ago we were there with a filmmaker. We took a filmmaker who's going to do a documentary of this whole thing because it's so bad. We took him in there and we asked him if we had a ex-Amish guy, a man, who met with us, but he wouldn't get out of the truck. Here's what he says, Butch. If the Amish leadership were to see me talking to you and informing and telling, they'll come and burn my house down.
I thought they were nonviolent.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. He goes, oh no, Russ, you know how it. He says here's what it is. It's so exclusive, so restrictive. Like we had to sneak it during the dark of night onto Amish farms to talk to Amish men who were terrified. They wanted to tell us, like the last guy talked to you twice. He begged me. He literally begged me to go help. He said the whole system must change, Russ. I can't do it. I'm Amish. I can't do it. I can't let anybody know I'm talking to you. But please, I beg you, help us do something. We can't do it.
Well, that's got to break your heart to see that need. Are you placing some of these people in safe houses?
Well, we have that option for them. We have a couple that actually there's a couple that have left that world. One is, her name is Misty Griffin. She's written a book called Tears of Silence, and we've talked with her twice. She's now having a big film done. And another woman, Trudy Metzger, who got out of it all, wrote a book and has worked back and forth. But again, the problem. I mean, what do you do when there's 10 of you that know? It's like the whole community knows, but nobody's permitted to say. The whole community knows, and nobody wants to defy the Amish bishops. Nobody wants to go up against them.
And the local police forces probably know about it and aren't doing anything about it?
Well, so far, I just met with a trooper and the local police officer, Here's basically the conversations were, well, we don't have much to go on. I said we just gave you evidence. We gave them. I know what they want. I mean, I come from that world, so I know exactly what they need and want, and we gave them everything. And I just said it very clearly: if you're not going to do anything, number one, we're going to go public and we're going to name names of who did and who did not do anything. Number two, we're taking it already to the feds, and we've already sent letters to the Attorney General, and I didn't tell them the name of the national media, but we already are working with them. That's what I'm saying. It's what's going to happen now, because nothing has on that side been done. We're the only ones doing anything, and they want us out of there. So
you're even messing up the system for the local policemen. They're like local cops. They don't like this either.
I think the Amish has pushed them away for so long and have kept them out. It's almost like a kind of a cultural thing. You stay away from the Amish. You don't bother them. Well, but what about when they, like Pennsylvania law, if an adult sexually abused, like the case that right now, earlier today, here's the case. I can't give you names because it's active, but I'll give you exact case just I got today. New one. Here's an 18-year-old boy in the same church where there's other abusers, the same Amish, structure, Mennonite structure of a church. He goes forward, he talks to the bishops. The bishops send him off to one of their counseling centers. They did not tell the parents that this boy raped and sexually abused their children. Well, that's a federal violation. Second, they finally had the boy come back to the church, and they tell the parents with the abused kids, on this Sunday, you stay away because he's coming to church, to be in church, and next week we'll have him stay away and you can come with your kids, because they were afraid he'd abuse the kids again. But they haven't done anything. So I was so outraged about that this morning, and I heard it last night, but I heard more this morning, that it's like, we're going to send people right into that church. The bishops and the leadership there. I already had. What we've been doing too, which is we go in and again we're pouring prayer out. We're asking thousands of people to pray over Belleville, Pennsylvania, the whole area. We want a lot of people to pray because, one, the Amish hold to some moral principles of the scriptures like hard work and things like that, separatism, but they don't have a clear gospel of being born again, being saved, and knowing Jesus. They don't know how to be liberated.
Well, obviously they don't know much about righteousness either, and the Holy Spirit dwelling in to produce our righteousness. They're not born again. They're not born again. Then obviously they're following their own teachings.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. The cult structure. There's that form of it. It looks like it, but the denial of the power, the denial of the reality, the denial of. That's why they can't get free. That's why they got generational. Grandfathers, fathers, grandsons, great-grandsons, 18-year-olds. It's like this massive, addictive, pedophile-oriented, generational sex. And you do know the Amish have two genetic problems because of all this incest for, since 70 years back or even further. They have two major genetic faults. And anybody can read this. Is just absolutely true. Anybody can, research this. The Amish have a specific genetic default that some of the children are born with 6 fingers. And some of the other children are born what are called deficient. They could be 15 years old, but they have the mind and physical body and brain activity of a 6-year-old. So they have a high level of deficiency and a genetic problem of mutation because of the long history of inbreeding.
Well, has this been going on ever since they had been formed then, basically, or is that just something new in the last 50, 60, 80 years?
No, I think it goes back to Switzerland, actually. And I think it goes back all the way to the origins of, and I'm not going to say that all of them are, I can't calculate how many are doing this, but here's what I can calculate. Of the girl victims, the girls' mothers, mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, all from 7 years old to 70 years old. This is from the mouth of the victims themselves. When I was trying to, over the last couple of years, equate how many, I was first saying, is it like half of all the girls? Is it 50% of all of them? So on the big mountain that they have there called Jack's Mountain, we're standing there, I'm talking to a victim, been there all her life, came out of that world, and they said, no, Russ, you don't understand. Not 50%, it's 80% of all girls. 80% of them will all be victims of incest, rape, group rape, over and over again, and they'll all be subjugated and be silenced. They're not allowed to talk. They'll be punished if they talk. So I'm really outraged about this. So I deal with another victim. We have a website connected to my main one called, it's www.pennsylvaniahasasecret.com, and on that website there's a prayer for the valley. Well, you click on the prayer, you read this powerful prayer for the whole area where a girl, a victim, is praying for God to come in. God, please send people to come in here, help us. God, come in and stop this abuse. God, I want these bad guys I want justice. I want them to be dealt with. And this prayer goes on to say, in the name of Jesus, I want to forgive these bad guys. I want to forgive the guys that abused me, but I want justice. I want this to be stopped. So she writes this massive, massive prayer, and now I know who the girl is. And she might be the film that's going to be coming up. She has this bold prayer over the area. So I call her to talk to her, ask her if I can take the whole written prayer and put it on the web, put it out there for people to pray with her. And she was like, yes. And she's the one that says, we know God sent you guys in here because nobody locally will do this. Nobody will investigate. Nobody will deal with it. Everybody's run out of town. So I said, well, we're not going anywhere now that we're here. We have no question God led us here. They're like, we know, the victims know that God, they now have hope, we've been told, that God is sending people to help them, that there's more that want to come out. And this girl, this bold girl, that she says one thing, but Jesus healed all the pain in her life.
Amen.
Jesus helped take all of it away. She's been on fire for the Lord. And she said, Russ, you're wrong about one thing. It's not 80%. It's 90% of all. She is born, raised, third generation. I mean, her great-grandmother, her grandmother, her mother, they're all Amish. And she says, by the way, Russ, my mother was raped and never allowed to talk. My grandmother was raped and abused, never allowed to talk. She moved out of the area. She moved 2 hours away for one reason, to keep her kids from being raped and abused and messed with.
Well, is this in their communities nationwide? I mean, this spread all over the country. Is this common everywhere?
No, now that we've engaged from, I don't care if you go to Iowa, you go to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, you go to, anybody can do a researching thing right now on Holmes County or Berlin, Ohio, where they just nabbed a guy for over 100 sexual abuse episodes with boys in an Amish Mennonite mission down to Haiti. They just arrested him. It's every place there are Amish.
So it's not just girls it's young boys also.
All the way down to Belize, where they have an Amish Mennonite outpost. We've met folks that have come from Belize. We've had them here at our house to tell us. It's everywhere that you find, the Amish structure, the Amish people. It's every single place. Here's what the Amish, the one girl victim that wrote the prayer, she said, it's like this, Russ. Everybody in the area knows. It's not, all the girls know this. It's not if you get sexually raped and abused, it's when.
Oh, my.
That's just unbelievable when I heard that.
And boys also, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, I posted the picture, a composite picture of the bishop holding up the naked little girl. Of course, it doesn't show anything, where he's demanding all the other girls to be compliant, otherwise he's going to choke them out too. So I posted that. I get phone calls from a man that was from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I mean, he's crying on the phone. They moved clear out to a northwestern state to take his family and kids away from the sex abuse that was going on with the boy in the beatings with his own boys. He told me how bad it was. Here's a man crying on the phone. And Butch, I'm just telling you, it's what we found all over the place, everywhere. So no, it's not one region, it's the whole structure. And I think that they know that the lid's coming off of this, so instead of dealing with it or trying to do something more, they're clamping down and trying to keep everybody out.
Wow. And a sidebar of this, too, that is going to hurt a lot of people. A lot of folks that maybe aren't even believers look at that and think, that lifestyle can't be too bad. Look how they're living. Look how clean this place is. And so this is going to be a huge hurt on the witness of any kind of goodness from Christ in this whole picture.
Well, yeah, because, like, for example, in the area, we have folks that, and I don't want to give too much away, but there's going to be massive billboards. There's going to be news. There's going to be probably television news crew eventually. There's going to be a film documentary put out with us in it and dealing with the victims we're dealing with in it. There's going to be so much major stuff coming out. That's one of the principles, is that everybody that thought community people, like we meet with a number of community people too that are, believers that go to different churches or whatever, but they're born again, they're saved, but they're not, they see the Amish everywhere. They buy food from the Amish, they buy wood, products from the Amish, but they don't know. Now they're hearing the story. And here's what they tell me. Well, we've all heard this for years, but, of course, nothing comes to light directly because they're not allowed. Other than now. Now, there's a few others that I think are bringing things to the light, and I think that, I think the leadership now is kind of really terrified. As a matter of fact, while we're on the phone right now, Butch, I got a man that I'm going to meet with in a few hours driving out of that very area. He's coming clear. Well, he's going through here to Indiana. I'm going to meet with him tonight. I've told him, I said, either you get me a meeting with all the bishops and let me have a confrontation, a meeting, and engage them on all that's going on and ask them what they're going to do about it. Because if they're not going to do anything, I'm going public with the names, the places. I'm going to pull all this out into the public arena. So he's showing up as we speak. He's on his way. I have to meet him in a few hours to discuss a major meeting. And I said, listen, I'm going to bring guys in there. I don't know what kind of warnings I'm bringing guys in to protect us. But we're going to have a major meeting about their belief structure, the abuse structure, and how if they don't change, I'm going to do everything in the world to make this a public
Amen.
Outcry.
So you can say then that the hierarchy as a whole is either involved or know of this. Absolutely.
They either know of it, and what they put in place is simply, it's literally simply that they put in a protective. Everybody knows this too. That knows they protect the pedophile, rapists, the abusers. This system protects them from ever going to jail or being dealt with in any way like that. It literally protects them and utterly silences the victims. Yes. So this lady I'm talking about that wrote the prayer, she's 28. When she was violently, horrifically raped at 7, her father, being in that system, wouldn't do anything. I went purposely and found that father. He let me come to his house. I sat down with him. Butch, I looked him in the face. I said, I'm a dad. If somebody violently, 4 guys violently rape my daughter, I guarantee you the cops better get to the people first.
Amen.
I'm going to go after these guys. I'm going to do what I need to do. This father did nothing, covered it up, subjected himself to the whole cult system of silencing the abuser, silencing the abused, and letting the others. So I went to him to deal with this, and I was kind of stunned. I just laid it on him, and so my mentality now is, if we get a meeting and we really engage these Amish leadership and bishops, I have to tell them that the structure is cult-like. I'm going to have to preach the gospel and say, are you born again? Romans chapter 8, if you have not the Spirit of Christ, you are none of His.
Amen.
So I need to, gauge them on that. I need to lay it out. You guys know you have the sexual, rape, incest, pedophile system. You're developing pedophiles. Because these kids, these Amish boys and men that aren't born again, they can't break their sin nature on their own. It becomes an addict. They become pedophiles.
Yes. Well, it becomes purely demonic, and whether they do rituals or not, the satanic rituals, they are performing satanic rituals in their own churches.
Well, I believe that they're vile evil. I mean, they've done a good job to cover it up. They've done a good job to seal it, cover it up. But I don't think anybody's known the inside structure, how cult-like, how secretive, how authoritarian, how threatening it is, and how some people understand. If anybody understands mind control, the concept totalism. It was even used with U.S. soldiers and the Koreans back when the Koreans. This goes way back, I think, to the 60s or whatever. But totalism is where you're taken away from all other environment. Your thinking is controlled. What you can read is controlled. Who you can speak to is controlled. Who you marry is controlled. Where you're allowed to go. I mean, like off the farm up to the marketplace and back. Every single thing is so utterly controlled under an authoritarian system. Well, it's the guys. I'm going to say this. I'm thinking now half of the bishops, half of the guys in charge have been abusers.
Well, probably so. I'd say at least that many.
Yeah. If anybody understands the Catholic Church and the priests' sexual abuse of kids and girls and how bad that is, let me tell you this. This Amish sex abuse is worse. The cult structure of it's worse. Getting out from the Amish, Catholics can leave and go somewhere else. Amish cannot. That's the whole problem. They can't get out.
Well, does the abuse stop? Does the abuse stop when the women become married? I mean, does that stop then, as far as men using them that way?
Oh well, no, because we have the case where I went on the actual farmland of one Amish man. The Amish man got shunned by the Amish church because he went forward and told his father-in-law, an Amish bishop, he told on him. Because he said, this Amish bishop is having sex with his wife, who is the daughter, and has been doing it before marriage and after marriage, and he wants it to stop. Well, at first, he's shunned. He owns crops and lands and fields and food. Here's part of the punishment. He's not permitted to eat any of his own food. He can only eat food that Amish people who feel for him can take food down to him. So they make him, like a cult structure, dependent. He's not allowed to touch his own food or crops, but he's dependent on them bringing him food, like he's a prisoner.
What does he do with his food?
Well, if he does anything more than that, he can be shunned permanently, and he's terrified.
I mean, but do the Amish leadership take his food and sell it, or what they do with it?
Here's what occurred just lately. Here's part of the good news. He begged me to go to the troopers, and we didn't mention it to the troopers. Now, we were in there a little over a week ago, and the Amish bishop, I could say his name because it's all legal, and it's public knowledge now, but the Amish bishop, his first name's John, he and his wife now, from the Amish church because of the sex abuse, has been kicked out, and both of them have been completely, they're not, now this is their justice. They kicked them out. They're no longer allowed to be there. The Amish bishop is no longer allowed to live on the same farm where he abused his daughter before and after marriage. And so they're kicked out. Now, I went looking for him about a month ago to meet him face to face, engage him. And I probably will look for him again this next time to engage him. So all this means is that he's kicked out. He'll end up probably going to a different Amish church or starting his own. The Amish have many, many break-offs like this, where Amish men will just go and start their own stuff on their own.
Sound like Catholic priests, just change places. Yes, okay.
That's part of it. Or start their own little. They're going to be now the new blue buds. That's how they have so many splits among them. But so I'm just saying that the culture of the sex abuse, sex addiction, it's pedophile, it's pedophilia, it's rape, it's group rape, it's incest rape, and in the surrounding culture where some of the men have gotten out of the Amish system, they've extended it to raping others, filming them, selling that film on the dark web, and actually you call it human trafficking, bringing men in to pay for the tied down girls.
Well, wait, no, they bring in outsiders to pay the tied down girls.
Yeah, to pay money. So they might have 4 or 5 girls brought in, late night, and have them in a certain area. This is what you'll find those areas to go after it. They'll bring guys in to pay money to have sex with these 12, 13, 15-year-old, 16-year-old girls.
They tie them down and force them.
So they've been tied down. There's it's despicable. If I was there, I know I would have to do whatever I have to do.
Righteously so. Righteously so.
I'm going to turn over more than tables.
I hear you. I understand that. I do. That's why they call me a pistol packing preacher. I will defend that at a heartbeat. Now, I want any questions. Anybody here in this group got any questions at all? Running out of time. Go ahead, Steve.
Some of the things he was describing was on a TV series a few years back called the Amish Mafia. I never believed it, but now
you can believe it for sure.
Because it was on TV.
Yeah, the Amish Mafia. I mean, was that a pretty well factual program?
Well, I think I saw an episode or two, and there might be some, that might be a little more dramatized a little bit, but when I dealt with people that were so terrified to be seen in public talking to outsiders, so terrified to be found out that they're being informants, and I'm like, well, what are they going to do, take your food away? No, Russ, they'll come and burn my house down.
Wow.
They will come. Here's what he said just a week ago. Right on film, he said this. Now, his face is blacked out, but on film, it's going to be on this documentary, he actually said, they'll come and burn my house down, or worse. He says, Russ, I've got children. I cannot let them know what I'm doing.
Any more questions by anybody here running out of time so quickly? Anybody got a question, comment, feel?
It's heavy.
It is heavy. It's very heavy. And we got about 5 minutes left. Go ahead. Joe here's got a question for you. Go ahead, Joe.
Sure.
Russ, when I used to live in St. George, Utah, the same thing you're talking about here with the Amish people was very common among the Mormons as well. I thought it was just maybe them, but I didn't realize how deep in depth it was with several groups of cults.
Well, you're absolutely right. I've been to Utah myself, Salt Lake, and engaged major Mormon leaders. I'm going to tell you the exact same. You're right. In a cult like that denies the deity of Jesus, denies direct salvation, it's an entire cult. The system is, once you look, it looks moral, looks clean on the outside, but when you're on the inside of it, dealing with people that came out, you hear a whole different story, including, now there's even a booklet written out, you get on Amazon, there's a book called Mormon Ritual Abuse, written by survivors, let alone the sex abuse that does go on too.
That's what Christ said to the Pharisees. You look pretty on the outside, but filthy on the inside.
Right.
Same idea.
It really is, and here's the problem, because of the sin nature. So these kids growing up, and they know that grandpa did this and dad did this, and all the stories are there, so they just fall into it. And they could have this kind of outward moral law, but inwardly the sin nature has been touched. So they can't stop them. I mean, I don't know if it, maybe even empowers them. That sin nature. The law is good and spiritual, but it doesn't take care of it. It's Jesus.
That's right.
And Him coming in and severing and breaking. Like the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus has done what? We've been set free from the law of sin and death.
Well,
they're not set free.
No, they're not. And Scripture tells Ecclesiastes 8:11 that when sin is condoned, it spreads. And obviously, when this has been condoned for so long, there's no consequence of what they do. So the sin nature takes over, and men have a tendency to lust after the things.
And they have no
agreed.
respect
I do agree with you there. It's horrific. It's big. We need mass numbers of people praying about it. Look into it. Help. Do what you can. Whatever. For all of us as believers, no believer needs to stand silent.
No.
Every believer needs to be active. Every believer needs to be involved. So and this all comes out of the context of evangelism and wanting to see people, Jesus save people or heal people, deliver people, and yet there's people there that have been crying out, for years, God, please send somebody from the outside here, because nobody in the inside area would do anything.
Well, it's amazing that me included have circled that picture for a lot of years and had no idea what was going on, and the people are literally crying out, you said, for help, and most of the churches have no idea and probably very little concern. But now that you told us this, we need to be more concerned. I'll be talking to you again sometime off the interview in private about some things I want to share with you. But don't forget, Monday night you'll join me again on the radio show at 8 o'clock discussing some of this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Butch. I appreciate it.
Well, brother, it's been great having you. The news isn't great. I don't like to hear what you said. Yeah. But it's got to be exposed, as Christ told us to in Ephesians. We got to expose this evil. And not only expose it, Russ, we have to attack it.
Absolutely.
Good luck.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. It needs to be aggressively engaged. Absolutely.
And Bobby said, tell you good luck and God bless on this. But I'll be in touch with you if I can ever get a hold of you again to talk to you some more, just you and I. But thank you, Russ Dizdar, for being with us.
Blessings to you.
I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Meeting later on.
Wow.
I just thought it was in the Mormon community.
I heard a lot about the Mormons.
Because I can remember living in St. George. I can remember going to the George's grocery store with 30-some aisles or 25, 30 aisles of grocery checkouts and all filled. And, a couple of women together, one pushing a cart and the same one pulling a cart, and her daughter pushing a cart, pulling a cart, because the pedophilia is so strong there. Plus, polygamy is so strong there. And the problem I had down there being like a white man and not being a woman, it's like dangerous.
Do you want to officially end the meeting? Tell the people next Bible study.
Oh, okay, all right. Bye-bye. And folks, this will be in this teaching, exposing today. We'll be back, Lord willing, on the 20th, I believe it is, for current events, and Phil Hoodlock will do some teaching that weekend. So join us back on the 20th. Don't forget that. Spread the news to your friends. Go to PastorButch.com, get the information off the site. Share it everybody you can. It's very important. We are exposing the truth, the evils around us. Now let's stand and fight it. God bless.